promised you we would talk to Rick Neuheisel and John Davis, but we're going to talk to John Davis first and hopefully Rick Neuheisel second. And John Davis, by the way, is the editor for the Oxford Citizen.
Correct.
And you cover Ole Miss, right?
Yes, I do.
But more importantly, you're one of us. You're a
I
South
am.
Florida guy.
I was born in the South Miami Hospital. I lived off 86th Street over there by Danny Fussell Park.
Nice.
Hurricane fan growing up. Went to every game. My dad's a University of Miami graduate.
So you and I are freaks.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Real Floridians.
Well, we are like real Floridians. My actual Davises, though, came from Mississippi, so I came back to Ole Miss. That's where I went to school 20 years ago. And I married a girl from Oxford, and I've lived there ever since. And I'm in this business because of University of Miami football. I kept thinking this would be the best way to kind of cover it. And looking back, maybe I should have been a coach. But I'll be honest, with Mark Richt, I was so excited about that hire. I was not an anti-Golden fan, but I was so excited about Mark Richt being hired. I was in 1982. I know I'm 7 years old. I'm about to be 41, but let me tell you something. As soon as some of my earliest memories are in the Orange Bowl, and I was there when he played. I remember when Jim Kelly got hurt at Virginia Tech. That was my father's favorite quarterback. The next year, I was there for the title game. Bernie is my favorite quarterback to this day.
I'm a Steve Walsh guy.
Steve Walsh is fantastic.
Mr. Clutch.
It's so funny. University of Miami redefined the way college football was played. Florida State emulated them. They did all the stuff.
Speed.
Everything that Howard, Coach Schnellenberger, Coach Johnson did changed the game, and we're still seeing some semblance of it. They keep talking about in this conference, again, I cover Ole Miss and been doing it since the late 90s. Every coach in this conference still tries to get defensive tackle, 3-technique defensive tackles like Warren Sapp, like Russell Maryland, like Cortez Kennedy. Those are all still coveted guys. Miami fans don't realize how many we just kept pushing them out. It's just so amazing to think how many years in a row, because those kind of things just don't happen. And I know everybody wants it again, and I would love it. I would love for them to dominate like that again, and I think they can be really good under Coach Rick. But I think at the end of the day, the point is people don't realize how amazing that was, because there are programs in this conference and guys that are making millions and millions of dollars that are trying to have a couple years like that and produce couple defensive tackles, have a rotation that's kind of somewhat like what we saw in the 80s and going into the 90s, even when Butch was there. Those kind of rotations just don't grow on trees. These guys really work their tails off. And Ole Miss
we haven't had recruiters like that either. That's the thing.
Right.
What Schnellenberger did, what Jimmy did, and what Butch did. After that,
right.
We have not been able to see any of those guys become those. They get some guys,
right,
but not to the level.
It's depth. It's depth.
Yeah.
And that's what this game is about: bigger, stronger, and faster. But it's about bigger, stronger, faster. 60 minutes of the game. It's a heavyweight fight, especially when you go up against a team like Florida State that's got that kind of level. Those games were so close for all those years, with the exception of the '88 game. Go at '87. You Steve Walsh guy, right? I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to lose this game. We're down 19-3, and Walsh hits Michael Irvin on
the sideline.
Yeah, it was, those were heavyweight fights. Even the '86 game was kind of contested when Vinny was there. I was there for that game in person.
Yeah, Vinny wasn't very good in clutch moments.
Well, the one game, there's two games that haunt me just be personally, and I still think the
Sugar Bowl and Fiesta for me still haunt me.
Well, the 87
9
Fiesta,
interceptions in those two.
Yeah, the 87 Fiesta Bowl. For sure. That's the greatest team that never won a national championship in the history of college football. The Alabama game doesn't bother me as much because I do think
that Alabama defense was an NFL defense.
I think they were better than them, but it's the Ohio State game. Those two, the Penn State and then the loss to Ohio State, especially after we thought it was over, I think those two were the two losses that will still always, I go, Miami was better than them. I don't think Miami was better than Alabama. Definitely not that night. I do think Miami was better than Ohio State. that year.
Well, that was out of our control. That was the referee.
I agree. I'm just saying those two games to me are still my most painful. And to dominate Penn State everywhere except the scoreboard or even just the turnover margin was amazing. Those two games I'll never forget. But there have been so many great moments. And I was so happy that Coach Coker won the 0-1 title for that team to stay together like they did. And that's another thing Miami hopefully can get to is senior leadership. Upper level leadership is so key in this game, especially nowadays with the parity. You have to have guys buy in, and you have to have seniors that will police themselves.
Sure.
If you do not have that, you cannot be outstanding. You can be okay. You can go to a bowl because everybody's going to bowl, but to be great, you've got to have that. So you've got to have depth, talent, and all that, but you've got to have your guys taking care of business because these coaches cannot be around them all the time.
Problem with that is it's tough to do that when all your juniors are leaving early.
Exactly.
And really the beginning of the demise of the University of Miami was so many juniors going out and not being able to replace them.
No, I totally agree. And that's the thing about it.
And it was the beginning of when guys were going out early. But then you start losing a Wilfork, Sean Taylor, and Winslow all in the same year. It's awfully tough to replace.
Yeah,
that.
but we talked about this yesterday. The problem is that Coker knew his X's and O's, but he wasn't the custodian that the other guys were.
No, you got to be
He occasionally got his good recruit here and there, but he didn't load it up like Jimmy did, like Howard did, and especially like Butch did, where he left. What he left was just – in fact, when you think about it, and Dennis Erickson knew his X's and O's, but he wasn't the custodian either.
Well,
you think about it. Jimmy left Dennis a hell of a team.
Absolutely.
And Butch left Coker a hell of a team.
Absolutely.
The problem is that those two guys could not keep it going. Look, Florida State's losing plenty of guys early. Alabama's losing guys early. They're overcoming all of that.
Fisher,
we don't have that yet.
We
don't have that yet.
This is a different era. Yeah, and so you have to accept that guys are going to leave early.
That's right.
The other side of that is your younger players do have to, as you said, give them some leadership. The counter to guys staying for a fifth year, which I wish they would, and they don't anymore. In those days that you're talking about, University of Miami players as freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores made all their mistakes on the practice field, and nobody saw those mistakes. Now, freshmen are not redshirt freshmen. Mm-hmm. They're making the mistakes in the games. Everybody is seeing those mistakes in practice. They're on Twitter. They're on message boards. It's more difficult for young players to gain personal momentum, personal confidence, because the avalanche of criticism is coming before they've even played a game. But more players today also are coming in earlier. They're coming in as
they're actually better prepared nowadays.
Well, they're coming in January. Mm-hmm. You get more sprinkling of those players, so they do get at least an extra spring practice. But those teams that you talk about, Florida State, Miami, and much for Florida and Texas and USC that all went down. It's very difficult to get those older players, to get the era of the older player. So you're going to have to win with great sophomores and great juniors, and you have to be ready to replace them right away, which is what Jimbo Fisher has been able to do.
And he's a great head coaching recruiter.
But Alabama has been able to do it, and I think one of the things Nick Saban is selling him on, because this is an era where kids look around and they go, well, let's see, John Davis is the starting defensive tackle at Alabama. I'm not going to go there. They want to go someplace else. But what Nick Saban is selling them on now, he's taking advantage of the fact that these spread teams are running so much offense and so many plays. Guess what? You are a starter, because we can only go with our defensive line for 30 or 40 plays.
That's right.
The next wave comes in, and you are a starter.
And by the way, the other thing that we have to add, the guys that have been running the U as of the last 10, 12 years,
right,
they haven't created the atmosphere that has that junior saying, you know what, I'm going to stay one more year because we got a shot at a title.
Right.
That environment's not there. It's been such a crappy environment,
right,
that they're dying to get the hell out of there.
Right.
And that's, you're at Alabama, you want to stay another year. You might take the chance of staying your senior year because of what you might be able to accomplish.
Well, and they're playing
at Florida State, you're
right,
doing the same thing.
Right.
At Florida, you've had that at times. At Miami, that hasn't happened for over a decade, so it's up to Mark Richt now to create that environment, find the depth, And that way you can overcome, just like Alabama, just like Florida State, just like all these guys are doing it. They're overcoming some of those. So it's really all about environment.
It
I
is,
think they've
by
got
the way,
the right guy.
The Les Miles is here today.
Right.
And I would say, here comes Will Muschamp. I would say that the demise of LSU not being able to get back to the championship game,
QB, dude.
Well, no. One is, to a certain extent.
Oh, God, they've been horrible.
But they can't get past Alabama.
That's correct.
And they've had a stripped-down team. Nobody's lost more players early than LSU.
No, you're right. And that's the thing. When they've lost players, they haven't been nearly as good, whereas Alabama, who's second in that category over the last 5, 6, 7 years, they've been able to replace them and still continue to go on. And
Again, who's got the better environment? Alabama.
Absolutely.
LSU's been known to fall short now.
Well, I will say this.
That's kind of what's been going on with them.
And
by the way, their quarterbacks are a freaking disaster. If you're going to beat Alabama, better have a pretty good quarterback.
And that's where I want to see if is Coach Miles and Coach Cameron, that's there, used to be with the Dolphins, are they going to be able to open it up and really get consistent quarterback play? Brandon Harris is athletically gifted, but can he play with consistency? Because that's the key of quarterback, leadership and consistency and not turning the ball over. If you're able to do that and catch defenses off guard, you've got a great tailback, obviously, in Leonard Fournette. They should be good, but it's consistency. Can he bring that? I'll say this, too, about Miami in regards to talent. All those kids, every single college comes down to recruit Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. And Miami, any of the Florida schools is like turn on a light switch potentially from turning it around. But if Coach Rick can recruit, and so far he's off to a good start in his first full year of recruiting, if he can keep those homeboys at home, local guys at home, I think they have a great chance. And the other real thing that's kind of hurt Miami, I think, in this modern day arms race, if you will, is salary in regards to assistant coaches. Dan Werner is up at Ole Miss, and he's making double what he did at Miami. It's an arms race.
Blake James did a nice job here.
I think
this is the first time Blake James.
Right.
This was Blake James' moment, by the way, as an AD. This was his moment to say, is he going to be a good AD, or is he going to go the road of let's go cheap, let's get the lesser name guy, the up and coming guy that we think? No, they got the proven guy.
They did a great
job. They got the best candidate available, and they spent money on not him, but his assistants. They gave him the money to go out and get decent assistants too.
Look, I'm all about academics, and the University of Miami is a fantastic academic institution. People don't realize. I've taken my wife there, who grew up in Oxford, like I said, and Ole Miss is a fantastic, beautiful campus. She went to the University of Miami campus and said, "This is heaven." I've had a number of people say that. You get them on campus, they love it. But at the same time, all that greatness that University of Miami is, if you put the true emphasis on football, it makes everything better. And I know that some of these academic presidents don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. Football matters, athletics matters, and you put an emphasis on it, it only makes your overall institution better. The more money you put into it, the better you become as a whole, and it's a pride thing. And I really firmly believe the University of Miami fan base is looking for it to be restored, and if they come back, it'll be like never seen before from a fan base standpoint.
All right, John, can you stay with us another second?
Absolutely.
Because I wanted to talk about Laramie Tunsil. We've already gone long here.
Sure.
So Dolphin fans, we're going to come back because John covered Laramie Tunsil's career. You can follow him, by the way, on Twitter at Oxford Citizen JD. He is the editor of the Oxford Citizen covering Ole Miss football. So Dolphin fans, you're going to love it. We're going to get great insight on Laramie Tunsil next. We do want to remind you, of course, that the show is live from the SEC Football Media Days in Hoover, Alabama, and it's driven by Williamson Cadillac Buick GMC. Back with more with John Davis.
Get hooked on Tuesday at Bonefish Grill with our 3-course menu. Begin with a crisp salad, your choice of a savory entree like our Atlantic salmon, and a decadent dessert for $14.9. Enjoy our 3-course Hooked on Tuesday menu for only $14.9, available every Tuesday. And be sure to try our Dayboat scallops, caught daily off the coast of New England and delivered fresh to Bonefish Grill. They're grilled to perfection and served over a bed of creamy risotto. So come into Bonefish Grill today before they're gone.
Fashion emergency hotline.
Help, I'm hosting my annual pool party and I need to look fierce.
How about an amazing bathing suit?
It can't just be a bathing suit, it needs to be a major ensemble.
You need to go to Old Navy for the hottest swimwear, super soft tees and tanks, and the cutest summer dresses.
Old Navy?
Yes, right now get 30% off your purchase or 40% off if you use your Old Navy card. You'll find shorts, tees, and swimwear.
40% off? Oh, I'm sold. Now I can focus on my pool float decor. Thank you.
Don't thank me, thank Old Navy. Valid 7/14 to 7/18. Some exclusions apply. Subject to credit approval. See store for details.
John Davis joining us here from the Oxford Citizen. You can follow him on Twitter at oxfordcitizen.com. And you obviously followed the career of Laramie Tunsil.
I did.
When I was at the Combine, and this was before all the stuff hit the fan, I couldn't stop getting an NFL guy that I knew to brag about him. They loved him. They called him the best athlete in the draft. They called him a freak. Everybody wanted him. All of a sudden, he drops all the way to 13. To me, I'm super happy because to me, it's not that I condone it, okay? It's kind of like the whole thing with Mark Walton. He had 2 beers. He was under the drinking limit.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know he's underage.
Right.
But what, am I going to be shocked that some college student's having a beer or two?
Right.
What am I going to be, a two-faced liar? I was having beers when I was in high school. Forget
Right.
about college. So,
Right.
a college student smoking from a bong is not something that's going to shock me about Laramie Tunsil. So you tell me, first of all, who is Laramie Tunsil?
You know, the people have asked me that, and I will tell you he is a generally quiet guy. He kind of shies away from the media, or has. You know, this past year he was suspended for 7 games. We did not get – he was off limits to us until the Sugar Bowl. Compared to Kim Dichie and Laquan Treadwell, who were also the big 3, we called them, the guys who were drafted in the first round this past year. He's probably the least known. He's always kind of flown under the radar because he's quiet, and then he doesn't play a position to where you bring in after a game. You don't bring in the offensive tackle. You bring in Laquan. Tell me about that catch.
Right.
You bring in Kim Dichie. He's a defensive tackle that got a sack or a fumble or whatever. So in that regards, I still really, truly don't know Laramie, even after 3 years. I think I know him. But then what happened on draft night, and that was the most bizarre thing. I'll say this. I've never seen social media overtake a live TV event until that point. And I felt so bad for him. He's a generally good guy. He loves his mother. I mean, he is, from an athletic standpoint, I'll say this to Dolphins fans, because I'm a Dolphins fan, and I was extremely excited. The steal of the draft, they should be. It's just amazing to have gotten him at 13 because he is the first overall draft pick talent. There's no doubt about it. I think they're going to play him at guard. Is that kind of what they're still planning?
Well, for now, yeah, because they've got 2 tackles.
Dude.
So I think Brandon Albert.
Yeah, I knew Albert.
That's the thing. He's going to be at left guard, so at least he'll stay habitually
on the left
doing
side.
everything left side. And I think Brandon's gone either in the next year or 2. So either Tunsil's your starting left tackle in 2017,
right,
or worst case scenario 2018. But I think it's one of those 2, and it'll be interesting. Yeah, and right now Dallas Thomas is listed as a left guard,
and he played at Tennessee. He's a good player too, but as athletically, Tunsil is
superior.
Everybody's raved about him. I mean, I think he's going to have a 12, 13, 14-year career in the NFL and be an all-pro and a multiple Pro Bowl type caliber player. I really firmly believe that, and I think he learned a lesson. And I hope the whole rest of the country, all these young kids, learn a lesson about who you associate with, social media standpoint. His agent is Jimmy Sexton.
Yep.
Supposedly the financial advisor, don't know who it was, who he supposedly got let go in October, was the guy that hacked him. He's had an issue with his stepfather. That was a little over a year ago when all that started to go down, and some stuff with the agents and the free cars and all that. I mean, that's stuff that we growing up and even guys in Miami understand that. I mean, 2 guys from Juwan Young and somebody else, the cars and giving kids a car, it happens. Yeah. So, Laramie got in there and had 7-game suspension. He was fresh. I mean, he came in last year against Texas A&M and was really good the whole rest of the year. Again, I just think athletically gifted, if they keep things, I guess, simple, and I know on offensive line-wise, even in the NFL, it's kind of tough. He's definitely got the capability of learning. I just don't know what they're going to ask of him. And I think from a just point of attack, blocking, protection standpoint, he's going to be great. And long term, maybe the left tackle that the Dolphins have been kind of hoping for years. Richmond Webb, I think, is the only other guy you can kind of compare him to.
I think he's better. He could
be better. That's what I'm saying. But if he's as good, that's amazing.
Yeah, because I think he can be the pass protector that Richmond was. I think he actually can be way better than Richmond when it comes to run blocking, because I think he has that talent. Now, will he be? I don't know. That's high praise right now. Richmond Webb is
absolutely
one of the best
it is.
Now, let me ask you something, because I get to go to the Combine every year, and I know a lot of NFL people. Do you know what happened that day with Nkemdiche going through that window? What's the story you hear?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I didn't. The one thing that was surprising to me is that Nkemdiche says Laramie was there. Now, we had not heard a single bit of that. Robert and his brother Denzel had a lot of transgressions in the sense of, episodes during their career. Laramie had avoided that up until that point, and obviously he didn't get, fall out the window like Robert did and bring attention to it all, but that he was there was a surprise, and that should have been the first kind of sign to me, okay, I swear to God, I never thought I saw that bong gas mask thing. I never expected that. I can't believe that he had somebody tape it.
Well, NFL circles, but
it all kind of fits together now.
A lot of people in the NFL told me that they think what happened that day was that there was a scuffle between Tunsil and Nkemdiche, and Tunsil grabs Nkemdiche and throws him through the window. That's what a lot of people think happened, and then they just kind of covered it up.
Well, let me tell you something. He could do it. And as big as Robert Nkemdiche was and is, or still is, he's the kind of guy that could absolutely do it. I mean, this guy's a dancing bear,
Nobody can say it publicly, but privately,
yeah,
that's what they're saying in NFL.
That makes sense, too.
I got to tell you something. I'd rather have the guy that's the throwee in this exchange, and that's if that guy can do that to Nkemdiche, that's.
I tell you what. Another guy he kind of reminded me of. Again, going back to Miami, growing up, he looked when he got on campus at Ole Miss. He looked like Leon Searcy. I mean, he looked like that dude. It just was just like
the punch.
Oh, he looks like the guy. That is everything you were looking from an offensive tackle. He has that kind of look to him. Is that Leon Searcy? And I mean, again, he's got all the ability in the world. I think if his head's screwed on straight, and I'm not saying it's not, I just think if it is, and this is truly a learning experience, he's really motivated. That's the worst thing you can always do to a player as well, is give him extra motivation. So this should do it, and if he really is, my gosh, look out.
Joe, when you talk about Searcy, that was one of the most impressive punches I've ever seen for an offense. Searcy knew how to just hit you with those two hands and stop you on your tracks, man.
Yeah, he was great.
The power was amazing.
What is the Ole Miss investigation going to lead to?
Well, if you followed their response, they've already levied 11 scholarships. I think long term they lose a few more from the NCAA. I think, again, University of Miami people know how all this works. You never know what they're going to do. I do think that they like the fact that you quote-unquote help, and I think, again, Hugh Freeze pointed this out, a lot of the allegations were self-imposed or self-reported. I do think there's the big thing that everybody's kind of worried about is, do they miss a postseason? Do they miss a bowl ban? And if they get the word in mid-October, does it come this year when you got a Chad Kelly returning and all this potential? I think that's the big scare, if you will, around local and Ole Miss kind of circles. I think they get 2 or 3 years probation and about 16 scholarships. I don't know if they miss postseason.
Well, I'll tell you what they ought to be worried about is the scholarships.
Of course.
You can't replace.
Well, they're losing 11, and I think they get a few more. It's just hard for me to believe the NCAA goes, okay, this is exactly, you got it right. You gave us exactly what we should just give you. I mean, don't y'all agree that usually the NCAA it's hard to believe that they agree with everything that you give them as far as a self-imposement?
Yeah, nearly impossible.
Right.
Well, especially considering what they're facing. You're talking about the involvement of boosters, and you're talking about the involvement of maybe assistant coaches and some kind of cash exchanging hands.
Well, the assistant coaches deal is definitely the thing.
Those are real red flags.
But I think, again, and Freese talked about it, he doesn't anticipate any staff moves, but it seems like if that comes out, he's willing to do it. And I think again, the way I look at it is if you're taking care of those kind of issues, I've always believed, with a show cause going to individual coaches is kind of the better way to do a lot of this as opposed to the scholarships. And, I know it hurts your depth. But I think again you're kind of limiting what kids can do from an education standpoint, and you're also hurting players that may not have done it. The vast majority of those guys are playing quote unquote clean. I don't know how another word to call it, and maybe it's supposed to be that way. But I think in the reality of it is, I think you kind of look at the individuals that are totally responsible for these kind of things. Again, I think the Nevin Shapiro thing involving University of Miami taught me a lot about how all this NCAA stuff works.
There you go. John Davis, by the way, sports editor of the Oxford Citizen and Journal, and obviously covering Ole Miss. Great insight there on Tunsil, and obviously a passionate South Florida and Miami guy. John, pleasure, my man. Look forward to having you on again.
Anything y'all need.
Really appreciate it.
I really appreciate your time, and go Canes this year. Hopefully it's a great, fantastic season.